Okay, there's 3 cameras rolling on this podcast.
Yeah.
What are
no
we?
name podcast.
The No Name Podcast. Well, that's because we're just going to talk about real shit.
David.
Let's do it.
I love it. We're good with it. We're so smart about podcasts. We're talking about filming.
What's the purpose in filming a podcast? Isn't a podcast exactly that it goes out audio only?
Some people, I guess, want to sit and watch you talk.
Okay.
We're going to find out how many.
Well, let's.
Evidently a lot.
I
It's
think-
not
Like
us
one,
either.
Mark Coleman.
We got lots of fans. They're good people. Don't give them crap because they're convicted. They're part of us. They're part of the family. You can make fun of them all you want.
Mom might watch. Because
Mom.
she has to. She's his husband and our mom.
She's got to support.
If I'm on it, she ain't watching. Now she might watch because you guys are on it. But
Nah, Dan's not here.
all right,
She
so
doesn't care.
so it's June. So we're 2 months away from most people's deer opener, right?
or most August or September.
September.
Or
I think
October.
there's a lot of deer seasons that start in September. I mean, not a lot, but I know the western states. I know Kentucky, a couple others, New York, New Jersey. Eddie was just here. He was telling me that his starts September 1st. So basically, we're like 2 months away. Deer aren't fully grown, so we're not really talking about antlers and everything. But the topic came up, or I don't know whether I brought it up or I got it from listening to other people, but it's in over 30 years now of shooting a bow, this has been something that's been talked about forever. I mean, and there's no solution to it, but I definitely think that we have an opinion on it. And that is, what broadhead do you shoot?
Biggest controversy there is.
I think it may be the most controversial topic in the industry, in the hunting world.
I think distance could be more.
Distance might be.
Distance or crossbows. But
Crossbows definitely fire up but then again, crossbows fall in that category with traditional archery and compound bows. You got training wheels on and all that stuff. But everyone has to have a broadhead.
yeah. Yeah.
Which
they
doesn't
do.
make it. I don't understand why it has to be a controversy either. Because everybody's going to do something different as long as you're doing it ethically. Who cares?
Well,
But I guess that's part of the.
that's what some people try to argue, I think, is what's the ethical advantage, disadvantage to what particular broadhead. I honestly think the reason that the broadhead, that the discussion about broadheads is even a discussion is because all of us are looking for, we're trying to find something that's going to get rid of our mistakes. That's all there is to it.
I don't think we're looking for that. I think some people are saying
Well,
that that's
We're
why
not
they.
at all. That's why we practice as much as
Yeah,
we do.
exactly.
Well, I don't mean that as in we. I guess I'm including us in there because we're all wanting to be the most ethical and the best shot we can and humanely take animals the best we can. I mean, I think that would include everyone. So I say you all. So when I'm saying everyone, I'm saying us included. You want that. So how do you go about doing that? And I do feel like that we do bring. I mean, we were just counting it up. We have over 65 years of hunting experience with bows and arrows. We've now, I didn't count up how many between the three of us that we have shot, but I can say that alone I've shot over 200. I might even be pushing the 300 mark of big game animals
We've
with a bow.
Looked at it, and it's well over 300, I think.
Yeah, it's over 300. Because mine, if you count all of the ones that, well, we just did that last year. If you count all the shots of everything, it's like 500 and something animals shot that were either, I think it was like 400 and some kills and then another 100 and some hits. And then we had, I can't remember how many misses.
Okay, so we're
And
looking,
that was all on film. That
Okay,
wasn't stuff outside
but
of video.
if you say that, then right there is saying that you have a 25% or a 20%.
Those aren't all us. We have other people that
Okay, so
we were
that's-
filming and everything else. And I mean, we'd have to go look at them case by case to be able to say what all the factors were. But I can tell you the number one factor on every single one that wasn't
Is
found, and it wasn't hit where it was supposed to
It's
be.
the human. It's the human element. It's not
It's
the
just-
bow. It's not the broadhead. It's not the arrow.
That's the
it's-
placement
Right.
and
And
where it was hit.
and I think and that's a whole nother topic or for another podcast that I think the biggest topic there that falls into that category is why did they miss most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time is because they're stretching the distance.
Yeah.
trying to shoot further
And
than
lack of practice.
and lack of practice.
The amount of people that walk into Shields or walk into a bow shop a week before deer season and they haven't touched their bow since last deer season, how can you expect to be a good shot at all?
Yeah, I mean, so no matter what, when we're talking about broadheads, you have to practice with them. I mean, that's just a must. Whether it's
well, let's just do it this way. What are you shooting? Fixed blades or
I'm shooting a mechanical.
mechanical?
I shoot a mechanical.
And I shoot mechanical. So now let's ask everybody,
Now I've shot.
what's our
fixed blades.
reasons for shooting mechanical?
Well, mine comes from you guys because I used to shoot fixed blades, and I probably have shot more different broadheads than you guys have, because when I first started hunting, they didn't have mechanicals. It wasn't even an option. So I can probably think of 6 or 8 off the top of my head. I shot Muzzies. I shot Patriot heads. I mean, these are 2-blade heads, that you see on traditional stuff. I shot G5s. I shot Wasp. And again, I'm going back to, I even used to shoot a 4-blade Wasp. Sometimes the arrows shot super good. Sometimes they didn't. And you would have to tinker with your bow. You'd have to.
You have to adjust stuff.
You're constantly working on paper tuning it or just tuning the bow properly no matter what. And when you're the only person in a family, if you're the only one hunting, that's okay. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind taking the time.
I would tell you, though, that's not even true all the time. Meaning that, because I can't remember, I'm trying to remember what it was. There was some reason a year ago or 2 years ago that I was trying to get a fixed blade to tune. I can't remember why it was.
It was for Alyssa.
No, it was on my bow.
You were shooting a fixed blade?
I was going to shoot a fixed blade for some reason.
Oh, probably for your recurve.
No, it was my compound. Because I remember
No.
the reason I remember so clearly is because I went out. So my arrows, I had bare shaft tuned to
He
my
remembers
bow.
so clearly he doesn't know why.
Yeah,
No, it's because I missed. I shot it. I went out at 30 and figured it'd be close enough, and it missed the whole flipping target. And my arrows were bare shaft tuned. So anybody out there that's going to tell me you don't know what you're doing, your stuff wasn't sighted in, you weren't paper tuned. I had all my arrows were bare shaft tuned. They were paper
which
tuned.
is hard to do.
Yeah, and I'm talking bare, like, perfect. And I was shooting 60 3-inch
With
groups
field points.
every time with field points.
Okay.
And then I decided I was going to put this fixed blade on there for whatever reason. I can't remember the exact reason that I was doing it. It might have even been just to test it. I can't remember exactly what it was that I was trying to do. And so I shot at this block target at like 30, and it completely flipping missed. And then I was pissed because, like, what the hell? And so then I went back, and I figured it was just one broadhead. There was something wrong with the broadhead. So I grabbed another one, and I went up. Now I scooted up this time instead of starting at 30, and I shot at like 20, and it was like 5 inches left.
Did you check them, like spin them or anything before
Yeah.
you shot them?
Perfect. Spun perfect. And then I
And
shot
had the
him.
right grain?
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
you know me with archery stuff.
I know. I'm just asking the questions that
but-
other people are going to ask
okay,
because
but-
I'm curious too.
and I think that is going to be the common denominator, the most common scenario that listeners are going to hear, and they're going to go, "Yep, that I've had that happen." And that is, you're shooting a field point, and you sight your bow in, you get your bow all set up, and I mean everything's dialed in. Whether the archery shop tuned it for you, whether you tuned it yourself, whether a buddy did, or maybe you didn't tune it at all, but you got your bow shooting where you wanted to. The sights are there. And then all of a sudden you slap a broadhead on there and it's not hitting where you want. And you didn't change anything.
And that's the most irritating thing in the world.
Absolutely. And
Especially if you're meticulous about your stuff. Once you get it set, you don't want to have to move it at all.
That's kind of what led our family down the mechanical road. Not kind of. That is what really led us there. I had heard about mechanicals. I had seen mechanicals. I had heard all the horror stories. It's a mechanical. It has something that moves on it. It could fail. And I was like, why would I ever want to implement something like that into what is already a lot of possible failures in archery? Not getting close enough, not, a gajillion things. And then one day what happens is, and this was before you might have been born, but you weren't shooting a bow yet, but Warren was shooting at the time, and he was getting close to hunting season. And I want to say, I don't know if it was your first hunting season, first or second, so it was probably close to 15 years ago, 12 years ago. But you and Mom both were shooting phenomenal. And I mean, for a 12-year-old kid to be shooting 40 yards, even though I wouldn't let you shoot that far at
You
an
better
animal.
give me credit. I was shooting a bow
Yeah.
at that time.
Oh, yeah, you were shooting at that time, but you weren't hunting. You weren't getting ready. We didn't put broadheads on.
Shooting a bow yet. Okay.
Well, I meant you weren't hunting. So we get everything set. You guys have been shooting all summer long and not wanting to be the guy you mentioned earlier. We're going to slap broadheads on a month before and just see how they shoot, and then we can make slight adjustments if needed.
I remember this. It was at the fairgrounds, right?
Yep.
Yep.
And both you and Mom.
See, that's how.
Yeah,
Often
you can
I don't
remember
miss
anything with hunting. You can't remember
that
anything
one.
else.
Yeah, now ask him if he remembers where he missed, because
Yeah.
I do remember which way you missed, because you and Mom were exact opposite.
I was left, 3 inches left.
You were high left. Mom was low right. And I don't know if that had to do with the fact that she's left-handed and you're right-handed, but either one was the first arrow is like, what's going on? Okay, shoot a field point. Both of you shot. I mean, I had you go back and forth and do it field point first, broadhead first, then opposite of that. So that, and then I was like, all right, don't tell them, because maybe that's what's going on, is they're thinking it's a broadhead. This is going to be different.
How are you not going to tell them that they have
Just
a
don't
broadhead
look
on?
at. I didn't let them look. I would put the arrow on for them, and they wouldn't look at it. And I'm like, okay, just as soon as I give you this, you're going to come to full draw and shoot. I mean, they could have cheated, but there's no reason to. We're trying to solve something here, and both of you were shooting not consistent. Both of you were shooting consistent, but not consistently where your field points were flying. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I got 3 of us, going to be 4 eventually, that I got to tune these bows all to get to fly these. And I watched the 2 of you when I said, this is what most people would do. We'll just adjust your bow we'll adjust your sight so that your bow shoots your broadheads fine, and don't worry about it. You're good to go then. And in doing so, then your field points are off. And I took both of your guys' confidence and just absolutely flushed it down the toilet. We had months of all summer shooting extremely well. Both of you were hitting exactly what you wanted to. I was happy with where you guys were shooting. You were dialed in. And now you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn because we had one broadhead shooting one place, even though they were shooting consistently. The broadheads were. They were all high left for you, all low right for Mom. But that was what it was. You know?
So then you either have to shoot broadheads all the time, or
Absolutely.
you have to shoot your field points knowing that they're off.
Yeah,
Or,
well,
I mean,
so-
in real world now, you could tune your bow. But all I'm saying is I've done all that. Because you know what I did after I missed and couldn't get him to hit? I came back, and I shot it through freaking paper again.
Some amazing
Everything.
results.
Yeah, you'll question
And it was still
yourself,
there.
for sure.
What's the theory if you're going to tune your fixed blades? You tune them and everything. When I go through a hunting season, even if I haven't killed anything, it's 2-3 months, depending on where you're at. You have a long hunting season, and I tend to be able to be the one that's last couple days. Okay, if I'm going 3 months without shooting
That's
my
'cause
bow
you
to
only
practice,
you only hunt afternoons.
whatever. I hunt mornings now too. Okay, but if I'm down to the wire in 3 months, that's a 3-month time span there where I'm not practicing at all. I'm gonna sit there. I'm gonna get my broadheads where they're shooting well, and then you're telling me that throughout that whole entire season you don't practice at
No,
all, or are you only practicing with your broadheads? Because when I come back from, a lot of times if I hunt a morning and then I'm gonna hunt the evening, I have a couple hours there in a downtime on a weekend. I go outside and I put a block target out and I shoot. I practice.
Yep.
Because I don't want to go 3 months without practicing. But if with the broadheads I shoot, I know they shoot exactly like my field points, so I don't have to change. Or keep shooting the same blades and have to resharpen them or switch them. So what's the theory behind if you do have to adjust your bow to get it set properly with those broadheads? How are you supposed to practice?
Well, so that's what we need a hardcore fixed blade guy here, because he's going to tell you that he's going to tune his bow to get it where his broadheads, his fixed blades, and his field points are shooting
Flying
exactly the same.
Exactly.
And I would tell him that's fine. I got no problem with that. But now I'm going to tell you that the average dude, the average guy out there,
How many guys can do that?
is not going to spend the time.
that's yes.
Or the knowledge,
Who
though.
cares though? If they want to do that, that's fine. I mean, I think they should do that. That's great. Is what I'm saying is the average guy, the guy that's middle of the road, he is not one. He probably doesn't have a press. He doesn't have the knowledge. He doesn't understand camling. He doesn't understand any of those things to be able to even
Start making
tinker
those
with that stuff
adjustments.
in the first place. Yeah, maybe he's going to pop his rest over to the left. Then he's really going to have a cluster on his hands.
You know that I'm experienced though with that stuff too, learning from you guys. I don't think I could sit down right now and take a fixed blade with one arrow and a field point with one arrow and make them both shoot the same. I think I'd have to pick one. I don't know if I'd be talented enough to be able to sit there and tinker with it enough to figure out how they're both going to shoot the same.
I believe you could.
Yeah,
if you needed to, you would.
It could just take a long time.
But this is why there's Jiffy Lube, Speedy Lube, and all those places, because people don't want to change their oil anymore. Some of it, you can't even do it anymore. Some of it, you can't even find the oil filter. It's no different with archery. And that is, some of this stuff is just over people's heads, and yet they still want to do it. So do we exclude them because they can't get this set up and set properly?
I think that your average guy, so one, to all the dudes that do that and they take the time to, more power to them. I have respect for you. Got nothing wrong with, I think that's great, and I think that everybody should do that. But the fact is most won't. So for the average dude.
I don't think it's most won't. I think it's some don't have the avenues to be able to.
Yeah, that's probably true.
But there's a bigger question. Do we need to?
No, I don't think you do.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't feel like I'm giving up anything by shooting a mechanical broadhead.
Is who I'm referring to, though. We're talking about the top 10% of people right now. I'm referring to the 70% of hunters that are going to spend probably 3 to 10 days in the field a year. We're talking about guys that are going to spend 30-plus days
they're the ones that take off their 1 month of vacation.
Or they quit their job,
David.
What? To go hunting.
Quit their job for the season.
So the rest of them, you have to look at what people are telling them. You need to go and do all of this stuff in order to kill a deer or kill an elk, and that's BS. Now, I do think that there's, like, barriers, right? Like, I would not go tell a woman that's pulling 45 pounds with a 26-inch draw length to shoot an expandable. Personally, I think that she should probably be shooting a fixed blade. And I think that from my own experience with my own girlfriend and some stuff that she shot with an expandable that we didn't get penetration that we needed to. But at the same time, your average person,
to be able to open
the
blade.
We just didn't have. We weren't weren't getting enough kinetic energy.
I mean,
I was just gonna say my first turkey.
His first turkey, first and second
best
turkey.
Or the best.
They literally bounced
example.
off. I mean, and that was, but the only person's fault that was mine, because I was the one that decided what broadhead went on there. The moment that we put a fixed blade broadhead on your arrow, you killed the next turkey you shot.
But granted, at the same time too, the ones we were shooting were rear expanding because we want them to, which is going to give you less kinetic energy to get through, as opposed to one that just like a slip cam. But at the same time, I don't think that if I did a slip cam, I don't think if I even had a slip cam on, because I was shooting 35, 40 pounds,
I don't
if
remember
that.
now, but right around
I was like
40.
10 years old. I don't think it mattered what kind of mechanical I had on. I think we would still had the same issues as far as bouncing
I think
off.
we just didn't have enough kinetic energy. Period. Regardless of what broadhead. In
Except
a mechanical
for the fixed blade, yeah.
I mean, having to have something that could cut on impact as soon as it hit there, that's what made the difference. Because you didn't hit the two turkeys in any different spot. I mean, literally, the video shows the turkey
fall over.
That one falls. But I'm talking about the one that spreads its wings and just knocks the arrow off. So
we should talk about that real quick, though. So you said the reverse opening expandables.
Yeah.
So the reason Easton's saying that is because I don't know when you developed that theory, but at some point, Dad discovered that if he shot turkeys with a reverse opening expandable, it didn't
penetrate as far.
You wouldn't get a pass through. So I've seen a whole bunch of these videos.
We wanted to keep because where you shoot your turkeys, we wanted to be able to keep.
Because I also don't
the
shoot
arrows
them
in them.
Right.
Yes.
I'm shooting them in the legs.
So there's a whole bunch of these videos on YouTube where they are getting the most penetration on their penetration tests with reverse opening expandables.
Right.
So I would like to. We're gonna have to do a test on that somehow at some point. And I think a lot of times because they're shooting it through a piece of plywood or something, and it's not continuously in something. Because we shoot turkeys with a slip cam, and
they blow through
like butter.
Yeah.
You shoot them with a reverse opening, and most of the time our arrows are sticking in them.
Which is what we want.
Yeah, exactly.
What I'm shooting right now, I've told you the past 2 deer I've shot have been both mature bucks, and I've blown through them completely and stuck in the ground on the other side. And I shot a turkey with rear expanding this year with you, and it didn't even get halfway through.
Right.
And I guess it got down to about like that much left.
And that was at 4 yards.
And that was at 4 yards, and it didn't you would think that if I can pass through a mature buck, it should go right through.
But that's where I think a lot of people don't understand the anatomy and what's there, the feathers, the bone structure. I mean, when you try to tell someone that a turkey, that wing butt is harder possibly than the shoulder of an elk, they're going to look at you like you're crazy, and that's where the whole broadhead thing, the bigger the animal, the more argument you're going to get that you shouldn't be using an expandable. And I don't know how many elk now, over 20. Between the two of us, he hasn't been on his first elk hunt yet.
Hunting, I've been.
Yeah,
I've
but
not
you
been
haven't
shooting.
shot. So, but anyhow, we probably have 30, maybe more. I probably have more than that, I guess. I just want to make sure that I'm not overstating. But all but maybe 5 of the bulls that I've killed have all been killed with an expandable broadhead. I've had pass-throughs with them. You had a pass-through just last year. And I think part of this is part of the argument, part of the discussion that's coming up is because I've Googled what's the deadliest broadhead, and there's actually an answer for that on the internet, and it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but there's a broadhead. It's the Annihilator broadhead comes up. If somebody that doesn't understand hunting reads that, they think that there's been something done that's why that is the most deadliest broadhead. And it's not. It's simply a company that found a way to own that.
Unless they understand keywords and stuff.
That's
All that is. Just
that's-
matches keywords.
yeah,
Okay,
they
but so back up. And for the person that would argue this, and I even asked you this earlier, with all the elk that you shot with a mechanical broadhead. Anybody that's watched the show has probably seen your one episode, Determination or whatever it's called.
Yep. I lost an elk.
You found it eventually.
6 days.
But it took you 6 days to find it.
Yep. And I shot that bull with a mechanical broadhead.
So why do you think that a mechanical?
The reason
didn't
that I
fail?
don't blame the broadhead is because where I put the shot. And that was, I heart shoot. I try to shoot the top of the heart on all my big game animals. So I'm aiming at the lower third, the top of the lower third. And so that puts me right on, and I mean, I'm hugging the shoulder as close as I can be so that I have as much room for error. I hugged it so close that I actually hit the knuckle. And the only reason that I'm able to know this is because once I found the bull 6 days later and he's completely annihilated as far as, he's
Everything's
lost.
gotten
I
to
don't,
him,
yeah.
So
but,
where did it come out? Just so people understand where,
okay,
where the arrow
so the
went in and
bull-
where it came out.
The bull came to me. I shoot him at, I think it was like 12 yards, 14 yards, perfectly broadside.
I thought
on the
he
ground.
wasn't quartered to just a touch.
Maybe just a very, very slight,
Okay.
but not. I wouldn't call him quarter
You wouldn't
two.
typically take a shot on a quartering two.
I would
elk
never take
either,
a shot
so
on a
it's-
quarter two elk. I mean, and he's not really quarter two. That's what I'm saying. If anything, he's walking by me, and I have an opening there. And I mean, I had other openings. I just chose that one. So I shoot this bull. Arrow goes in. You think it goes right through the heart. It actually, the fletchings bury in, and you think, and that's what threw us off on finding him. Was we kept going. Why is he alive? And we watched the bull for 2 hours before we backed out and left him overnight. Come to find out, to answer your question, Warren, when I finally find the bull 6 days later and he's completely, and I don't want to say he's completely because there was one side was all eaten, all the guts and everything are gone, but he was preserved the side where the arrow went in. And the arrow was still in him, and it was lodged in it. So I shot him on his left side. The arrow was lodged into his ham on his right side. Okay.
It's a
So the
pretty
back end.
severe glance.
Oh, it was like through the whole body of the elk. And the
Yeah.
reason why we didn't have any blood to follow is because the entire arrow was still in the bull. The only thing that broke off was about 6 inches, including the fletchings, which was what didn't go in.
And that's what you found, right?
That's what we found. And then I found the rest when I got there. Well, anyhow, even with him as stinky as he was and everything, I got to figure this out. So I started moving guts around and started pushing stuff away, and I can see the shoulder of this bull where it went in is chipped. I mean, it's like a cut perfectly. That broadhead hit that knuckle on there, and I don't believe it to this day. I'm not going to blame the broadhead. I think that one, I'm not positive, but I think that was an actual Rage broadhead that I shot that with. A slip cam, like the 3-blade that slides back. And it hit that shoulder and then glanced back. I believe if I would have shot him with a fixed blade broadhead, it would have done the same thing because of the very edge that I caught like that.
One of those 1 in a million type things
Yep.
where you caught it at just the right angle that it wouldn't matter.
Wouldn't have mattered.
Even if you, let's just say even it didn't do that, didn't glance back. I don't know that. I think you can shoot the knuckle on an elk with whatever you want. You're not going through it.
Through that,
No,
yeah.
you're not. I mean, it's like the wing butt of a turkey.
Yeah,
it's just
freaking
solid.
hard. Now I did have 2 glance though. I have two expandable
Absolutely.
stories
Yep.
where I do believe it was a broadhead.
And that's
Which-
the only broadhead that I would specifically bring out that
Yeah.
I would say that we had an issue
That
with.
Rage Hypodermic.
Yep.
Rage Hypodermic was the only one, and I loved it because it just looked cool. You know,
Right.
it just looked nasty.
Of
And
course,
then,
that's why he picks that one.
well, then it would spin really good and everything too, just so
yeah,
because
flew
it
like
was,
a
you know,
dart.
the surgical thing. Well, that one deer that I shot behind the, I guess that was the one after
It was after
you and I
you-
killed that one down there behind the house. So that one was you and I,
Mhm. And
30
then-
yards, and I hit him right on the edge of that
Right.
knuckle.
So
Did I
we-
hit him
so-
in that knuckle?
Oh, you're talking about your
no,
10?
So we weren't sure.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah.
we were giving it the same as possibly my elk shot. You hit him like right there, right
Well,
on
it
the
took a
heart.
while.
but that
'cause-
one had blood like no other.
It did for
That-
about 150,
That's the one that me and him
200
went and
yards.
found, right?
Yes.
With Ryan. Yeah.
You guys bumped him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, okay, but my point is that we still didn't blame the broadhead at that point.
We got to
because-
preface that for people because they may have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Okay,
So I
so-
had a deer coming at 30 yards.
This is an Iowa buck. This is not like a 150 pound deer. We're probably looking at a 200 plus on the hoof.
Yeah. Really nice deer, like right under 160. I shot him at 30 yards, hit him in what Dad and I thought was absolutely perfect.
Well, the
and
video
it's,
looks perfect too.
Yeah, I
You
mean, on
watch that,
video-
it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
and it's perfectly.
And so did the blood trail when we started.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was perfectly broadside. Like, could not have been there. You can watch the video and look at. There's no question on the angle of this deer. And so then when you and I went to go get him, I think is when the first time I got nervous was when Dad and I were following blood, and I was on blood, and he was somewhere else. And I can't remember if you said something to me or if I said something to you, but one of us said to the other one, "What are you doing? The blood's over here." And the other one said, "Well, I'm on blood too." And so at that time I got nervous because I was like, okay, well, something's not. This deer should already
Be dead.
How far apart
been
were you
laying
guys?
here.
At that point, like 15 yards. One was going
So
one
it's
way, one was
definitely
going
like
the other.
he had to have circled back or
Yeah,
done
he was
something
doing
because he's not
something.
going to spray that far.
Right.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
creek bed, and so he
Yep.
ran to the right, and then he hit the creek bed, decided he didn't want to cross it there, came back, and then got on the blood trail, and Dad had just basically undercut it.
Yep.
And so then, and I think we went, I don't know, another 50 or 60 yards, and then we decided, okay, we better go look at the video or something.
Well,
Or
and
did
then
we hear
we
something?
heard him blow one time.
That's
And we
what it
didn't know
was.
if it was the deer or, but the blood was headed that way, so we backed out at that point. But
Yep.
so the answer to that is we found that deer. Okay, you killed him. We found him the next day. We thought maybe the broadhead might have glanced, but at the same time, I'm saying we can't blame a broadhead if
If you hit the shoulder.
if you hit the shoulder or something like that. And then I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks later, but you and I were in the tree again. This time you're trying to kill a doe, and you shot that doe, and I had to leave, if you remember,
Yep.
because I had to be somewhere, and so he shoots a doe with the same broadhead, same hypodermic, and I mean I'm expecting a phone call from you that says I went over the hill and she was right there.
Well, she should have gone and fell over.
Yeah, I mean it
I
was
mean-
because that one was like 15 yards.
Yeah,
20
and hit her
yards.
perfect. I mean,
Yes.
and it came out back. That one did. I did go find her. She was right. She didn't go very far still, but that one I was able to confirm glanced off of a rib
Right.
on a doe, and I was
which
pulling
should not
70.
be happening.
Yeah. So that's the only, at least for me personally, that's the only two scenarios, and it was one broadhead that I could ever attribute to.
And I
the
and I
broadhead.
believe that, and I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physicist. I believe the reason is exactly what they're selling the hypodermic on, that has that hypodermic point. It's little tiny point.
None of the other blades are like that.
Right. Well, but it does not start into a wound channel when the blade's open. So therefore it's subject to glance because it's just a little pinpoint starting to go in there. So it has just a fraction of a second to kick one way or the other.
But both of those are assuming that it got to the deer before opening or anything. A lot of
Oh,
I've
yeah.
heard horror stories of
People saying that
broadheads
they open
opening
in flight.
beforehand. One of your guys, Eli, your guys'
Mhm.
camera guy, just talking to him about it, and he said that he said he shot a rage one time and it flew right over its back. You could watch it open up. Flew right over a 160-inch deer. He's like at 20 yards. He's a good shot. So where does this come from? And I said, what rage was it? He goes, hypodermic. I said, okay. That's the only thing I would ever say.
Right.
I would never trust that specific broadhead. But at the same time, so he's had multiple issues with that broadhead. And he shot them, and they've had issues where they've opened up before they even got there. And so it soared over that specific one. That one's back. And he's still willing to try different broadheads as far as mechanicals and stuff too. But that is one specific. Like that's like saying that if I have this,
I don't want to call Eli out, but I don't understand how that's happened because we've had hundreds. I've never had one open on me in air
Not
yet.
one. I've never had one either.
That's probably a lack of understanding on the collar system.
Well, the collar system is definitely an issue if you don't understand it, because they've made it a little more complicated now, I think, with having that plastic collar on the back end instead of.
But it's that
That's
much
why
more
that
secure.
no collar would be better.
Yeah, the
See, I liked what you did with Broadheads, with
Where I
the
just-
braces,
yeah.
rubber band thing. You'd used to go to Warren had braces. You'd go and grab a whole bunch of rubber bands, and
Yeah.
instead of having to use those collars on the back, you put those over top of the blades, and
You'd
then
put
when
it-
you
you'd
shoot
put
it,
on there with that, wouldn't it?
I did have
Yeah,
both.
you had both. Yeah.
the O-ring,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
Well,
when they
I
used
had
to have
the collar
O-ring,
on there, and then I just slipped the braces
but that's
rubber band
that's
right over
before
top
they
of
ever
it.
had the plastic collars that they do now.
No, I had both.
Since when they've had them that long?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, see, I thought they just had the O-rings. Well, that's what it used to. We used to shoot them with the O-ring and then the rubber band on top of the blades.
But with what Warren just said, I've never had one open. But at the same time, I'm checking my equipment. Every single time I pull a broadhead out, I got to look at it. That's worth it to me to be able to know that if I keep it closed, that the flight is going to be exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm willing to, but you do have to watch them, putting them in a quiver, taking them out of a quiver, walking with, if you're following up on a shot or you're spotting and stalking, you got to watch that broadhead because it could get caught on something and open.
There's certain guys that should probably use fixed blades just because they are just prone to anything like our buddy Marty. Marty needs a fixed blade because he's just so rough on stuff that guaranteed that a blade is going to be open before he ever even gets the full draw.
You won't even
He's
notice either.
That's what I'm saying. Some guys, like, if you know you're like that and you're just always bumping through the woods and everything, just
But they
figure
don't-
out how to tune and
they don't
put a fixed blade on there.
They don't make a broadhead with safety rails.
Yeah, I know.
Marty needs safety rails.
You were giving me crap last year because every time I get in a stand, it's a habit. I get in, and when I take that first arrow out to knock it, I'll sit down and I spin it on my
Spin
hand
'em? Yeah.
every single time. He's like, "Did you not check it before you put it in your quiver?" I said, "I did. I'm just paranoid. I want to make sure it's good."
So I did. I've had one failure, and it was human error though, and that was I shot a deer with a expandable broadhead. I cleaned it out because that's all I felt like I needed to do, and I cleaned the arrow. I took the broadhead off, put a new broadhead on it, and I set it in our garage, and I set it with the broadhead down. So any water or anything that was in the arrow ran down, and I didn't realize it, and it basically got into that broadhead and coagulated. And so therefore, so then later on what ends up happening is I didn't shoot that arrow at the deer the first time. I shot a deer and I didn't kill it. I didn't make a good shot. It wasn't Broadhead's fault. It was my fault. So I'm making a follow-up shot.
So did it not open or something?
Well, the follow-up shot, when I get there, I find the deer is bedded and he can't get up. So I just decided I'm going to shoot him again rather than wait on him to die. So I snuck around to where I could get a good broadside shot, and I shot him. He doesn't get out of his bed. But when I walk over, the hole that's there is obviously a broadhead that did not open. And then the broadhead was on the other side of him in the ground, and it still hadn't opened. And I was like, oh, boy. But when I went to open it, because now I'm thinking I got my first broadhead failure here,
Yeah.
I can't open it. I mean, it's hard enough that I'm afraid if I keep doing this, I'm going to cut myself.
Yeah.
So I finally got a pair of pliers and pried it apart, and you could see the blood in there. And then I realized what I had done.
Rusted.
It was blood. It was just the blood
From
it got
shooting
in
it before in the
from
other-
shooting it before.
Yeah.
So going with what you just said a minute ago, Warren, is we're talking 300 out of the 300, probably 200 of them have been shot with a mechanical broadhead, and not one failure. Okay, so now I feel like my opinion then is, as long as I'm careful with this equipment, that I'm paying attention to it, it's going to treat me good. But I got to pay attention to it. That's the downside of the mechanical broadhead to the fixed blade broadhead. Because with a fixed blade broadhead, I don't have to pay that much attention to it unless you're using replacement blades, and because I've seen that too. It slides out a little bit and the blade falls out. They got a 2-blade broadhead and they can't shoot it because it's supposed to be a 3-blade.
So do you think you lose anything, you personally, either one of you, are you losing anything, say, if you did shoot a shoulder because you're shooting mechanical versus a fixed blade?
Not one bit. Because I'll
No.
tell you right now, what did Hershey come back as? 6,
Five.
5.
People don't know who Hershey is.
I'm going to explain that. But I was
Okay.
asking, he always remembers the age of my deer. I can never remember him. We age all of our deer,
Right.
obviously, too. But so Hershey was a deer that I think we knew him for 2 or 3 years. And
Because I found his shed.
yeah, you did. That's right. 2 years. And he was the only deer I didn't want to shoot. Absolute unit, though. He's a beautiful deer, a lot of character, but he's a huge body. We thought that when we shot him, he's probably, what, 7?
Yeah,
He looked
seemed
like
really old.
his antlers were like super heavy and like short and stubby, like I've never seen on a deer. His body was absolutely gigantic. He looked scarred up and old. Anyways, he comes in at, I think I shot him at like 7 yards. I rattle him in, and I shoot him behind me, and he was quartering towards me, so not hard, but I mean enough where I knew I was gonna have to put my arrow through that first front shoulder, and he's at enough of an angle where I'm gonna hit that shoulder plate basically.
Mhm.
And I knew though that I'm shooting 470 grain arrows with a 29.5-inch draw length, and 470 grain arrows. I'm still shooting
70 pounds.
70 pounds at like 310 feet per second. So that's
Right.
a freaking it's a punch. Gonna hit it with a 3-blade mechanical. And when I shot him, I tell you what, it went right through the front shoulder, hit the back of the back shoulder because he's angled towards me, goes right behind it, and stuck in the ground the other way. And he ran 50 yards and died. So I think right there, that's a mechanical broadhead. And I shot it through bone, 100%. You could even hear it. And it's stuck in the ground the other side.
Well, I think that right there is the biggest misconception. I think what you just said about the shoulder plate. So I think that
this
the
is
reason,
a whole nother podcast.
It is,
right here.
but this is the reason all these guys are doing what they're saying. The reason all these guys are making 700 grain arrows and they're shooting fixed blade broadheads is they're all terrified of hitting the shoulder.
Yep.
Okay, I don't think that. No offense if you guys are the ones listening.
shoulder.
I don't think they understand where the shoulder is. The joint is where they think it is. That knuckle that we're talking about. But people, I think there's this misconception. What you're talking about is when he's quartered to you at the top of almost the top of his back. Really, there's a shoulder plate. People think that shoulder plate
is what covers everything.
They think that there's a line from that knuckle all the way up to the spine of a shoulder plate, and if they hit that, they have to have the penetration. Well, I'm here to tell you there's nothing there.
Okay, to be fair, though, it wasn't until like 6 months or a year ago.
Yes.
We're looking at anatomy like no other. Right. We've now looked at deer
because we
laying on the ground,
3D
open
model
it up.
of vitals.
We have the 3D model with the skeletal structure in it, and we're looking at this and we're like, hold on a minute. This has been 60 years plus of people saying, because it was something you were talking about. I was like, wait, this doesn't really line up. It's 60 years plus of bow hunting of people telling you where to shoot. Even more than that, probably.
I believe that the internet is filled with stuff that has the wrong where to shoot and that kind of stuff. But
that right there, as soon as you learn that, then all of a sudden, it makes a lot of sense on why all these guys think that they're getting they're shooting through both shoulders all the time because there's nothing there.
Yep, and that's what I thought. So the deer I shot this year is, I shot him forward. I had to have hit some form of bone at some point. But it was I had one little hole, and he was perfectly broadside. And when I shot him, it passed through as well. But any other time before we had just figured this out, I would have thought that I went through both shoulders, like 100%, no doubt. It was where you shoot, where his knuckle comes up. I was like 2 inches above it. Right, so, and I'm sitting there thinking this whole time in life that's the shoulder. Right. There's no way you're going to get through that. Yeah, very easily at least. Well, Hershey was the year previous. We did it with that one, and then once that one we know was through the shoulder because we looked at it. That deer this year was another mature deer, and any other time I would have thought that it was through the shoulder, and it's not. And it's right where that crease is, just forward.
Well, let's
where they're telling you not to shoot.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah,
it is.
But
I'm just saying it contributes. I think it contributes to why some of these guys are so adamant that you need to be shooting a fixed blade, and that I think that's just a big driver. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I disagree in some regard, and that is I think that the biggest driver is that people are looking for something that makes up for a bad shot, and it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But how many people are shooting a mechanical, though, to make up for a bad shot? Because you have twice the cutting diameter.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're hoping that if, in case I don't hit where I'm supposed to, I got more cutting diameter, I'll still catch what I want, which is a upside to shooting a mechanical broadhead, where a fixed blade is, okay, it's going to open. It's guaranteed to, it's already open. It's already ready to go. So there's that. So if I do think that there is some degree of something that, yes, you could take a more hard quartering shot kind of deal with a fixed blade broadhead than you can with an expandable, because in theory, I haven't had it, and maybe it's that I don't take those shots, and I don't.
That's a whole nother thing too. The shots that we are taking,
Right. I mean,
we're not taking risky shots.
No.
We're gonna let them walk if we have a doubt in our mind that it doesn't matter what broadhead we have there. We're not relying on that to be able to kill our animal.
Well, you shouldn't be trying to build arrows to shoot stuff in the leg either, though.
Yeah. Well.
Right. And so that's where it comes, is that everyone's looking for, and then, or the other one is after the fact. So after the fact is, we just made a bad shot, and none of us want to own it and say, I made a bad shot. And, we always want to say, oh, it must have been the broadhead. The broadhead is why this kicked back. I mean, I could blame that on, I could say, look where my arrow went in on this elk, and the whole thing is the broadhead. It wasn't the broadhead. It was flat out just where I hit him.
That's the first thing you taught us shooting. The first thing I remember was, if you're going to change your sight, you better make sure you're shooting at least 2 or 3 arrows where it's at, because you'll find them everywhere. You go to an archery range and you're sitting there and you watch a guy, almost every shot is changing his sight because he hits a little left. Oh, I need to change his sight. Hitting a little right. Oh, I can't get this bow to shoot well. It's just a piece of crap. Okay, well, is it the bow or is it you?
Absolutely.
Because the bow is most likely, if it's set up right, doing the same thing every time.
Yeah.
You're not going to be the same exact thing every time. No matter how good of a shot you are, there's always going to be a little bit of.
My goal is a month. I want to be able to go out and shoot one arrow every day, a month before the season, and it's within an inch of where I want to hit at my furthest effective range.
So you got one shot.
Yeah, and then in my opinion, my bow is sighted in, and I have a whole note log that I make notes on. So if I was an inch left, if there's 3 days in a row that was an inch left, okay, now I'll allow myself to move it 2 inches or whatever. But I think too, it forces you to, that arrow matters.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I shoot an expandable, just because most of the time expandables are going to be more accurate than a fixed blade. And for me, I don't want to have to try to be spending a month getting a fixed blade ready too.
That's another point we've kind of jumped over too. We've touched it, but a mechanical flies pretty much like a field point.
Yeah,
you can put that on there, and
you certainly should shoot them.
That's why they give you the practice blades.
We're not telling you not to shoot them. You want to shoot those broadheads.
No, those practice blades are
Absolutely.
perfect. Is that you put those, first off, they spin great, which a lot of fixed blades spin great too. But you put that practice blade on there, and it's exactly, that's what we're talking about with the accuracy. We're not having to set up. We're not having to change the tuning and everything, resight our bow completely.
And we're not here to argue that manufacturers, because I pulled broadheads out of a box that were 4 grains difference from each other, and I've seen it, and I've seen that on mechanicals, and I've seen that on fixed blades. So
when you're shooting a cheap broadhead, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you ordered off Alibaba, your broadhead is probably not the one that you should be concerned about.
Right.
Well, mine failed. Okay,
Well,
I wonder why.
I certainly hope that Alibaba's not watching right now. They are not listening to this podcast. They're like, what the heck? We just lost all our sales.
We don't care what the Chinese government
but Warren
thinks.
Warren brings up a good point, that if when you do go to buy broadheads, go from a trusted source. Go to your archery shop, go to an online, somewhere that you know.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that cost Alyssa 150 some inch deer, because she pulled that, and hopefully she doesn't listen to this, because now I just lost
she's gonna listen
for a week.
You know she is.
Well, she did that and ordered Knox from.
Those
from
lighted Knox that she ordered.
Stupid China Knox.
She kept telling me about. You need to get these.
And then what deer was that?
I don't remember which one.
Oh, it was that big freaking 8. That's what the one it was.
150-inch 8.
The one over it. Yeah.
Yes,
okay,
150-inch 8. She's a full draw,
and the arrow falls
and
off
I'm
the
telling her,
wrist.
I'm anytime. And I turn around, and she's like, "Hey, I need help. Hey, whatever." And I turn around, and the arrow's off, and it's like up in her bow, because she bought these stupid Chinese Knox, and it didn't set in her string correctly, and she hadn't been shooting them because they were her hunting arrows.
She thought they were the same.
And so they freaking. Here, I have a 150-inch deer at 12 yards that we couldn't shoot because we saved $4.
See, that even comes down to Knox and stuff too. It's not just about what's on the end of it. You need to shoot that too. If you're gonna put lighted Knox on there, it's gonna shoot different than your factory Knox. They're a lot bigger. They're bulkier. They're gonna have more grain. You need to be able to practice with that as well. So I'm surprised she didn't. She's pretty meticulous about that stuff normally, I would think.
Well, I think going on to
I am.
what Warren's
Yeah,
saying,
that's true.
though,
Or-
is like that month that you're talking about, you want everything shooting the same. That means you don't change anything.
Mhm.
You know, the only thing that you might be doing is putting a new broadhead on there. And
Preferably that's flying better. Like if you get one that's not.
well, we spin test ours. I mean, it's not foolproof, but it does tell me whether I got a good connection to the arrow, and then I'm trusting because I do not shoot my broadheads. I don't practice with them once and then plan to go hunt with them. I want them as sharp as they possibly can be when I go in the field. But I do shoot
With the practice
I shoot a
blade.
practice blade and I will say this, that I have pulled out practice heads from all the different companies and found one that I felt like weighed within 1 or 2 grains of the rest of them, so that I knew I was shooting the same one each time.
Yeah, you always had a bunch of
I
them.
had a bunch of them,
laying around, yeah.
but anyhow, so I think what we're talking about though is, so here's that person going out to buy a broadhead for the first time, and I think that you're actually seeing a big push, and I think it's wrong. I'm flat against it, of people saying don't buy mechanical broadheads. You got to be shooting a fixed blade broadhead. If you're going to big game hunt, you need to do that. And I'm here to tell you that I will stand beside it and say, no, as long as you educate yourself and you've done things correctly, you can shoot a mechanical broadhead and you're going to do just as well as
if you're pulling enough poundage.
if you're pulling enough poundage. And
But
have
that's
the right
also
drawing.
doing your research. What we're talking about
Absolutely.
right here. Watching this right here would tell you that we wouldn't shoot. If you're shooting 35, 40 pounds to start, don't be shooting a mechanical broadhead.
Right.
Don't risk it.
and,
But
and
at the same, that also is one little thing. The other thing that drives me up a wall is people will flat out tell you you're an unethical hunter if you shoot mechanical broadheads.
That's BS.
That drives me up a freaking
Yeah,
wall.
that's not right.
At all. And the other thing that goes with that too is outlawing a mechanical broadhead. That to me, that's like if there is a reliable source that's going to give you a better cutting diameter, as long as you're putting your arrow in the right spot.
From what you and I saw this year, tracking,
That was
I
the
would
biggest
rather
sickening thing ever.
see people shooting an expandable.
No kidding.
And so what Easton and I are talking about, so one, I think is what you're trying to say is that if you're for new archers out there, as long as you meet the specifications of enough kinetic energy to open up mechanical broadheads, don't be afraid of them.
don't be shying away.
Yes, I think it's better for them, honestly, because the chances of that flying accurately, and as long as they put in the work to make sure they're shooting good and them hitting where they want to, opposed to just putting on a mechanical, is a lot better. Because there's a whole bunch of them that probably don't understand that they need to shoot a mechanical a whole bunch. So I think that their odds of killing something ethically is probably better with an expandable. But what Easton and I did this year, tracking became legal in Iowa so him and I were both tracking deer for people, and we were getting tons of calls.
With our dogs.
Yeah, tracking with dogs.
Yeah.
We weren't running around with our noses to the ground or anything, but
We're not that good.
yeah, we can't do what those African guys do, where they freaking
They just look at the ground and they're like, "Yep, there it is."
So East and I were running a bunch of tracks. Were you asking your guys what they were shooting them with?
A lot of times I did.
Yeah,
And a lot of them were shooting fixed blades.
me too. And the biggest thing, I'll tell you, the number one reason that most of my guys weren't finding stuff is just because
It's a bad shot.
they didn't hit it good, and two, or they just had no idea. Like, they had no clue what happened. They don't know if they hit it low. They didn't know if they hit it high. All they know is that they couldn't find their arrow, and maybe there was some blood.
The two biggest things that me and you we talked about it so much. You've done some with Dan tracking and stuff too, but this year we're taking Christo. We got a huge variety of seeing different good shots, bad shots, where people are saying. The biggest one was I hit him high and a little back. Well, when we find him, we find that deer laying there, and it's not even within a foot of where they said they actually hit it. And that's nothing to take away from them, because one, I know how it is especially when you get that rush. You don't always know where that arrow hit perfectly until you've got a lot of experience where you can really control that, or have a camera with you to be able to turn around and look at it again. That's a great thing about filming. But the other thing too is they're saying that they know where to shoot and stuff, and they aren't even they can't hit where they're saying it's the broadhead's fault, but they just flat out had a bad shot. They're like, "Oh, I hit him perfect," but no, it's not a good shot at all.
I believe, and I think you guys would be able, my testament for it. It's teachable.
It is very teachable.
When the moment that deer, when you fire that arrow, there's certain things you do, and the one thing that I tell everyone, you do nothing. You stand perfectly still. You're perfectly quiet. I'm talking about you're not reaching for your phone to text anybody yet. You're not talking to someone if they're with you. You're just standing there, and it's almost like you're holding your breath, and you're trying to figure out, do I see an arrow sticking out of the deer? What do I remember? What did it sound like? Where did he run? Where is he standing last? What do I see and hear? And I can't tell you how many times we've seen or heard a deer fall.
Yep.
You know, and we've thought, oh, well, we didn't hit him that good, because same thing. Sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes the lighting changes and an arrow gets there too quickly and you don't know. That's where we are pretty fortunate that we have cameras
in there,
you know. But the cameras have proved us way wrong many times.
Yeah, for sure. Where we think we hit it.
Yes.
Yep.
I guess I would wonder, and there's no way to know this. And again, we're not going to put stuff out there that says, you know, Easton ran X amount of tracks, and out of those tracks, he had 6 bad hits, and those 6 bad hits were all from a fixed blade broadhead, and they didn't know where they were hitting. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that out of those fixed blade broadheads, though, it doesn't seem like their consistency is the same. They're not putting the arrow closer to where that kill zone is, and I wonder if that is because they haven't practiced with that broadhead, and they were shooting field points really well, and now all of a sudden they're in a situation where they're trying to kill this deer, and the arrow, and let's just say they missed by 3 or 4 inches because of nerves, but then the arrow's another 6 inches off. Now you're 9 or 10 inches away.
See, but the thing about that is it's I'm going off with a mechanical or a fixed blade with tracking. I'm not even taking a side on it. I like shooting mechanicals. Obviously, we've all said that, but when I'm going to track a deer, it's down to like, okay, are we tracking this deer right now because you made a good shot, or are you tracking this deer right now because you didn't know where you hit it? And I agree with what you're saying with a fixed blade. Now, granted, you could be off with a mechanical too because of your nerves. Everybody can. It's a risk you're taking bow hunting in general, but having them not know at all is a massive issue. It all comes back down to you have to place your arrow correctly. It does not matter what is sitting. If it's a mechanical fixed blade, you can shoot with a field point if you want. Not legally, but my point is you can shoot with a field point. That's the smallest thing you could get, and if you hit it in the right spot, it's going to be lethal.
Yep,
every time.
And that's the other argument I hear all the time from these guys that are fixed blades only, that you are mitigating the chances of something going wrong in case you don't make a good shot. And from what I've seen so far, I'd tell you that you have a better chance of recovering something with a marginal hit with an expandable than you do with a fixed blade, because the cut is so much bigger. Some of the fixed blade cuts that I've seen are so small.
It looks like a field point. I think we had 1 or 2 of those that we found this year. We're like, can you shoot this with a broadhead?
Yeah, it's tiny cutting area.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're off a little bit, you're screwed. Like, you're not going to hit anything.
Yeah.
Which sometimes that may be better.
Good, so it doesn't hurt him at all. Yeah.
But I think that, if you're mid-body or something, with an expandable, and get a 2-inch cut, maybe you cut the liver and a lung instead of just one lung or something. I think that so here's another question for you. How much do you care about pass-throughs?
I want one.
How much do you care about them?
If I get it, I get it. I mean, I want to. I want to be able to drop. I want to be able to blow through it.
I want 2 holes.
I want to at least have one. If my arrow's sitting in there every time, I'm not going to get a blood trail at all.
I've decided so far, with a good shot, I don't give a shit about a pass-through anymore. As long as I get enough penetration, as long as I know that I'm shooting enough, a decent arrow weight, I'm pulling enough weight, and I have a good draw length, or my draw length's enough that I know that I'm shooting adequate weight to get good penetration, I don't care about pass-throughs anymore.
Well, I guess
because I've shot a whole bunch of deer in the last 10 years that I didn't get pass-throughs on. I hit them good, and they still only go 60 yards and flop over.
Well, I guess to clarify that, when you're
if we're
you
talking
said what
wounded.
I want. No, I knew you're saying what do I want? I want 2 holes because I got more blood to follow.
That's what I'm saying. Is I want to at least have a hole.
Right, but
so otherwise you don't get any
you are
blood
an
at all.
a-hole. I mean, we all know that. So.
Well, 2 things that though. So what I agree. If it's a marginal hit, then I would prefer a pass through because I'm going to have better odds of blood.
But hold on, I'm not worried. I guess to kind of go where you're talking about, if I want a pass through, great, and then I don't get it. If I can see where my arrow went in and I feel like I'm double lunged this deer, or I went through the heart and lung, I'm not worried. I'm not worried that I'm not going to find them. I mean, some of the last few deer that I've shot, didn't go all the way through. The last elk I shot was hanging by a fletching.
To be honest with you, though, for the guys that don't have a camera sitting with them, it's probably better if you're making good shots to not have it go all the way through. Because that means when it's running away, if you are doing what you're talking about,
still tearing up
you can
more tissue.
One, it's tearing a lot of it up, and two, you can you have
See it.
the next however many seconds it's in sight to be able to see where your shot actually is.
Well, and the thing about it though too, that from what I've started paying attention to, on all of the hits where it's not guts or something like that, with expandables, like a 2-blade, the cut is so freaking big.
The
arrow is not plugging anything
Yeah.
because the cut is gaping huge and they're bleeding all over everything anyways. So I don't really care if it goes through all of them. That's what I'm saying. All the ones that aren't, go back and look at our video. All the ones that aren't in the guts or somewhere that doesn't bleed, if it's one side, I mean, it's still just blood everywhere.
Well, and I think that's the thing is the fixed blade or the mechanical going to make up for when you don't hit them where you're supposed to? Which one's going to help you more? And mechanicals have a bigger cutting diameter. The chances of you still reaching, meaning you don't hit the dead center of the lungs, but you maybe still nick it because you have a 2-inch or 2.5-inch cutting surface.
That could depend too though on where it goes in.
Absolutely.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't remember the last time I had an arrow not go through though. So I don't.
My buck this year didn't go through. And that blood on the tree,
Was it? Yeah. I think I saw video.
like it looked like it was painted.
Mine didn't go through, but he fell in sight.
Mine. I seriously don't remember the last one I haven't shot through.
And
I'm fine with it. I'll keep shooting through.
Well,
I'm okay with that.
My
But
deer this year is a perfect example because I shot my deer this year at 7 yards. I was way above him, so the arrow like goes in next to his spine. Arrow stuck in him, and Colby and I followed the yellow brick road, friggin' just blood everywhere, and then it was when we about got to him, just like painted all over this trees,
Right. But
and there wasn't 2 holes.
But you shot clean through your elk
Yeah, I did shoot clean through my elk.
with an expandable broadhead.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember. I have to ask Eli. Eli did when wasn't mine hanging by the fletching? I think because I thought my arrow was a few yards. I couldn't see it because it went all the way through. But now you want to talk about a blood trail?
What about your oryx?
The oryx didn't go all the way through, but
How much penetration did you get?
probably 18, 20 inches. But I hit it in the spine.
I was gonna say you didn't hit it.
I hit bone. No,
Yeah.
it ducked as I was shooting. You watch the thing start to
You
roll.
hit him in the.
I hit it right
You
behind
hit him
the
in
shoulder.
the spine only because he rolled, though,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And which that's
So you entered low still.
I entered kind of like I'm aiming at the
Mid-volume.
lower third, and I hit the middle of the third, but she was flipping, and so when it goes in there, but it angles up and hits her right in the spine, knocks her feet out from underneath her, and so then I just put another arrow in it. But I mean that's an African animal, and I'm hunting it with an expandable broadhead, and never had any doubt in my mind that as long as I put my arrow where I needed to, that I could kill that animal. And so
I knocked her off her feet.
yeah,
That wasn't the intentional shot.
no, it was not.
It did. It worked.
But I'll
though.
take it after
Yeah.
103-degree temperature and 30 yards. I mean, we got what, and maybe that's the thing is, I would love to sit here and try to tell people we're such good shots, and that's why you need to listen to us. And you guys are good shots when it comes to shooting targets. I'm not. I never have been. I mean, I can shoot a bow, okay, but I'm not a great shot. I can't sit out there and drill dots at 50. I can't even see that far hardly anymore. So now, that means I got to be a better hunter. It means I got to get it within close distances to make those shots. And out of those 300 animals, I've only got 2 that I've ever touched 50 yards at. You know, and the rest of them are under that, and most of them are under like 20. Most of my elk are under 30.
And that's a whole nother podcast too.
Yeah,
Everything effective. But at the same time, I don't care how accurate you are. He's one of the best shots I know in targets just in general hunting too. And you are the best shot a person that makes consistent shots on animals in general I've ever met. We've met tons of people that have been hunting for years and years. But for him being the best shot I've ever shot with on targets, it doesn't matter. The whole entire adrenaline that you're having with an actual hunting, you're going to make a mistake at some point.
For sure.
The person that sits there, you've told us this from when we were little kids, it says, oh, I've never missed one before. They either haven't hunted or they haven't killed very many.
Yep.
Because
or
you're
there'll be a
going to make a
certain
mistake
one.
at some point.
Or they're just a liar.
Like Juice?
Yeah, that's a third option.
Yeah. Juice for you? Juice is the only one I ever watched that just
Shook
flat rattled your cage.
Yep.
And every time he was just, I could see it. I was like, Dad, what are you doing? Like, Okay, let's shoot. All right. Oh God, he's got it.
I was at full draw. Well, I was at full draw on him like 7 times before I finally released an arrow because I couldn't convince myself I had a good shot at him.
Well, you could just tell. He gave you the adrenaline we all want. You know, he just got you so excited that everything you knew just went out the window.
There's another one too, though. I'm 22 and you're 26, and I don't know about you, but in 22 years of hunting with you, I've only known 2. Juice is one. The other one is Bushy Beard.
Oh, yeah.
The one freaking turkey he hunted for years, knowing which one it was, and finally messed it up. And that's the only one that got to him.
Yeah, and I mean,
but it happens.
The fact that he was willing to spend 12 hours in a blind to shoot a turkey in the first place.
With the only thing he had with him was Oreos and no decoys.
and no calls.
Yeah.
And Mom.
Yeah, just sitting there snacking on Oreos.
She did that.
She read through 2 books. That was why we were getting out. She was done with the second book.
She was going to get another one.
I'm like, he's here. He's actually finally 6 in the morning to 7 in the evening.
Like voluntary solitary
turkey
confinement.
Ain't worth it, man. I ain't doing that for a turkey.
So I mean, I think all of that is a testament that
better have money strapped to his beard or something. Doing that.
Kidding.
It's a testament to that I love it, that we all love it, that we do it, that we have put in that amount of, we're not doctors or lawyers, or we're not able to do a test in a building. I'm not arguing that fact for a broadhead. What I'm saying is that we've gone hunting with them, and they've worked, and they continue to work, and they'll continue to work. And could there be an issue? Yes. Can you mitigate that? Yes, by paying attention, making sure that you're taking care of your equipment. But actual flight, not one. I've not had one single one open, and that's multiples of different companies that I've shot their expandable broadheads. Not one single one has opened on me.
So if you have 7, 8, 9, 10 broadheads that have opened on you, you might be doing something.
Yep.
You might want to look and see, are you catching something in your quiver, or are you just not paying attention to your equipment? There's probably something happen if you're having that happen over and over and over and over again. Because we are not the smartest crew, and we've managed to figure out how to keep them close.
Speak for yourself.
I'm speaking for you, too.
Well, here's what I think is going to happen. When a few people hear this, we're going to get some hate mail.
No, that's fine.
And then, we're going to get someone that's going to say, I'd like to talk to you guys about that. So
that's what we want, though.
Yeah,
we want to have these discussions.
Yeah, I would love to hear, because the thing that I will say is none of us are here to say we are 100% right, and therefore it is what we say it is, and you got to just go with that. That's not. I mean, I'm willing to look at what is it that why does someone, because maybe there's a reason behind something that we haven't thought of or that we haven't discussed.
Yeah, we're not saying any of this is fact. We're just telling you our opinion.
That's what drives me nuts, though, is the amount of people that watch all the shows and everything and all these people that are influential in what people are shooting and why they're shooting it, is they're saying you have to do this, you have to do that. The people that are pushing to outlaw mechanical broadheads because they're unethical, people that are like, that's not fair. You do your research, you know how to operate your bow, you know how to set your arrows up. If you want to shoot a fixed blade, shoot a fixed blade. If you're comfortable shooting a fixed blade, I support that 100%. If you're comfortable shooting mechanical, do that. But all these people that are saying no matter what, shoot a fixed blade because mechanicals aren't reliable. Just flat out, that's not even. It's not even.
We can show you hundreds.
That is,
hundreds.
We have
of
the
clips.
Statistics of hundreds of videos, hundreds of kills that show. If you can take that and still decide to shoot a fixed blade, that's great. Do that. Just make sure you take your precautions of setting it up correctly and everything, and be an ethical hunter. Nobody's sitting here telling you have to shoot a mechanical, you have to shoot a fixed blade. But my biggest pet peeve is the people that do say that. Like,
I'll go one step further, though, because what I would tell you is we won't show you the clips of the kills. We'll show you the clips of the ones that we didn't kill and why we're not blaming the broadhead.
Yeah, you can look at any of them.
Well, and the fact is, I'll put our success rate up against just about anyone that I know. I mean, and I'm not saying that in argumentative, or I'm saying that we're better than other people. I'm just saying that we're taking ethical shots as much as we can. We still make mistakes. We still lose an animal here and there, but I don't think we're losing as many as what maybe the average archer is losing.
It's called setting yourself up for success, not failure.
Yeah, so I think the few things you could take away from that is, one, all we're saying is do your own research and do whatever works best for you. If you've been convinced, though, that somebody's telling you that fixed blades are the devil, don't listen to them. Just like Bobby Boucher. Don't listen to them. because his mom always said
I
that.
know. We were quoting the Water Boy right now.
I love that movie, dude.
Yeah, and
best
you
movie.
know what happens is eventually no one knows what you're talking
That's
about.
gonna be the first. That's gonna be the first comment on here. Oh well, fixed blades hit like Bobby Boucher. You want to be like the Water Boy? You better shoot a fixed blade.
You don't talk about my mama like that.
You guys are goofy.
But the number one thing is just accuracy. Work on shooting your bow, and then take shots that are ethical and in your range. I mean, it's really pretty simple, I think.
The one place that we did not discuss that you probably will run into it, and I speak from experience, and that is there are some guides out there. Now we're down to one state. There's only one state that has banned the expandable broadhead, and the only one that's left is Idaho, and they still won't let you. But the other place is going to be an outfitter. Mm-hmm. You want to go hunt with an outfitter, and there's some of them that will still tell you absolutely not. You cannot shoot an expandable broadhead if you're coming to hunt with me. And when I outfitted in Montana, I had people that were always nervous to tell me when I say, what broadhead are you shooting? I wasn't asking them that question to go, oh, you're shooting a expandable broadhead. I was asking simply because I was just wondering what they were shooting, just comparing to everyone else.
It's curious to know, too. It's
Absolutely.
fun to find out what everybody's shooting, especially when you were guiding how many different people you had come in
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's why broadheads people get so attached to them, because they've either had an absolute horror story, or they've had, once you find something like that, then they stay to it. So it's either worked really, really well, or it's been an awful experience. And so then that person rotates until they find something else. And then once they find that, though, they are stuck on it. You won't get him off the broadheads he's shooting ever. You won't get I'm open to a few, but still not. You wouldn't find me venturing very far on broadheads either, because once you find something that works, you don't want to leave that.
Absolutely. But when you've shot enough of a bunch of a type,
yeah,
then maybe you're there. The one that the horror, if you're having horror stories and you're having horror stories with multiple broadheads, maybe it's time to look at yourself.
And the shots you're taking.
Yep. Because that's and I mean that goes for whether it's a fixed blade or an expandable, it doesn't matter. But
I think that's what this whole conversation comes down to, is people aren't willing to say I took a bad shot or I made a bad shot.
Yep. And it's going to happen.
And that's the best part about what we're talking about here, the ones we have wounded. We screwed up.
Absolutely.
We made a bad shot.
I'm trying to think, how many have we ever had that we've lost to penetration issues? Have you had any that
only
your mom's had one, hasn't she?
And that axis deer.
Well, I can think of two.
Oh, yep.
But it was a faulty arrow. I say broadhead, but honestly,
the outsert.
That
was when outserts had
bent.
just been.
Yeah,
and that was when I had that happen on that turkey, that very first turkey.
He was shooting the same one.
yours.
So yes, so that was when outserts first came out on arrows, and he shot a axis deer and hit it right in the shoulder, and the outsert actually broke. So you couldn't blame that one on the broadhead really either.
No. I've never had a penetration.
I think the only one I can think of, but it was with a fixed blade, not an expandable, was Alyssa's 2 years ago. That one that she hit that decent tall 10, kind of by the house.
Yep. Okay, yep.
And hit him in the shoulder.
Yep.
Hit him in the
it didn't go
in the
there, right.
cap of the shoulder there, and that was a fixed blade. So that one was just a matter of she's just not pulling enough weight.
Right.
Not pulling enough weight, and then didn't hit him where she needed to.
The animals I've ever wounded have been poor shot placement. And no matter where I've put them, they've always had penetration.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I've ever had any that I hit, and penetration was the only thing that I had a problem with.
My only penetration issue was the axis deer, and everyone told me it's like an African animal. Their vitals are moved forward, so I aimed at the shoulder.
They're tough too.
Yeah, but I put that sucker right on his shoulder, and it bounced right off, just like he hadn't even been touched. And we watched him walk off. Like, okay, I don't know what's at that water hole, but I'm not going back there anymore.
that was something pointy. That was a strong bee.
And then
he shot him with a Nerf gun. It really did. Just
with a Nerf gun with a little needle on it.
Yeah. I told him, I was like, that bounced off, because he was looking through the camera, and he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm telling you, we're going to go up there. My arrow's going to be laying right there. And we went up there, and there wasn't even any blood. I mean, it didn't, but you could see the outsert was crinkled. And I was
That's
like,
so weird.
what the heck, you know?
But then a lot
That
of people
deer
are
was
having
on-
that issue. That's
Deer
what we
was
end up
on
finding out.
trend.
Yeah, a lot of it
Just-
too.
He's awfully
roided
lucky.
up.
How many people though after that did we find that were having the same issue? And
Well,
maybe it became a big
The
thing.
company ended up coming out and saying that they were having issues
Yeah.
with that. And so since then, a lot of your outserts they slipped down over the arrow shaft
Yeah.
farther and they stabilized it.
Or they have like a collar that comes
Yeah.
over. Yeah.
And so they've solved that issue. But that was an issue.
Well, they say those are penetrate better.
yeah.
Which
Because
I've
there's
been
no
shooting those
friction.
airstrikes, and they penetration-wise, they've been freaking awesome.
And I'm shooting the
But
kinetic
they're like a
chaos.
half out, I think, technically.
Yeah, that the only thing with the kinetic chaos is they're a little thicker of a shaft, but the little outsert and then the collar that comes over it is still wider than the shaft of the arrow.
Well, I shoot
So
the
their
100,
theory on
100
that is
Pro, the
that-
standard regular insert. And
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not having
having
no
issues
problem
either.
with penetration issues on big game animals, on turkeys, nothing. So, all right. Well, I think we've covered this topic until we've
No, we're
like
gonna
I said,
we're gonna get a lot.
until we've irritated somebody. Probably
We'll be back.
there's someone in their car right now going, "You mother!" I just,
They're freaking. They're having
yeah.
road rage, and ain't even because of the road. They're yelling at us.
we're not responsible if you take that out on someone else. You know, and that's not up to us.
Yep.
But no, but I mean, we want you to shoot us a message. We want to hear about it. We
I
want to
hope
know.
we do come back to this topic. So
Yeah.
and hopefully we have somebody that we can.
Come in,
Sit down and talk
you
to
know, that
with
says,
about
"Hey,
it.
I won't shoot an expandable," and tell me why. And I'd love to hear.
The whole point of this podcast is to see both sides.
Well,
Whether we agree with it or not, we want to.
Yeah.
We want to
Preferably
show
it's
everything.
somebody that has
Experience
shot like
that.
more than one deer or something, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, if you're going to come explain to us why you're a hardcore fixed blade, like they said, we'd love to hear it, but have at least some information to
Yeah.
be able to present.
I think the best thing that we're hoping that comes out of these podcasts is that we learn something too.
Yeah.
You know?
And we're open minded to that
Yeah.
too. Like if there's something that we're not paying attention to or we just haven't tried, that's great. Open minded going into this and just our expertise and our experience that we've had to be able to take that and help other people. And same thing with somebody that comes in that knows more about something that we don't have any idea about. The whole point is just to teach everybody listening. So
Yep.
so we can all learn something. We can all be better. So
Without a doubt.
So how do they find these podcasts? Where do they go?
I'm not sure yet. Anywhere you can
Well,
find podcasts.
we'll tell you that later.
We'll get there.
We'll have to record something at some point that says, find our podcasts on
Yeah.
YouTube, Spotify, whatever we end up.
raisedpodcast.com.
Yeah, we'll have our own platform.
Where would you want them to message into, though?
Shoot us a message to Raised Hunting or Raised Outdoors.
Yeah, on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, we're on all the social media
TikTok.
platforms.
Okay.
Just message
You
us.
still have Twitter?
Or email us.
I don't think we have Twitter anymore, do we?
We do, but I haven't checked in like 6 years.
Yeah, so do Facebook or Instagram. That'll be the easiest.
if you want an answer.
Hey,
Elon
call
owns
us.
Twitter, I might get back on there, but
Yeah, there
that'd
you
be the
go.
only reason.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Thanks for listening.
Later.